following video is brought to you by the Boston Sports Entertainment Network. Please consider liking and subscribing for more Boston sports content.
I got the Boston Celtics going to the final. I got them winning without.
It's time to represent your city. Put your hands up. Colin, you know we do it for Boston. Hey, ain't nobody gonna like Boston. Yeah, hey. Can't nobody do it like Boston. Where the legends get made, where the banners get raised, right? Life's big stage. Boston. All the fire we bring in a city full of rings. It's a beautiful thing out of Boston. And you ain't hard like that. You don't put it on the line with your squad like that. That's right, Boston. All we do is win like cigars in the gym, and we at it again. I say, Beantown, what's up? What's up? 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 Feel the energy shift. Now we jumping at the gym. Represent, showing out how we ball above the rim. Larry Legend, 86 to the truth in 08. Cement your name with the all-time greats. Still banner 18 in the Raptors. Celtic green, only green that matters. It's about that time. Ain't another city that's louder than mine. Always gonna shine with the game on the line. What you think was gonna happen, man? That's how we do it in Boston. Ain't nobody gonna like Boston. Yeah. Ain't nobody do it like Boston.
All right. Welcome into this episode of Dynasty Proud, brought to you by BSEN. As always, I'm Ryan at 19_loading on Twitter. My co-host is Alex. He's at AlexZachary305. The Celtics are 5-1 after a win last night in Charlotte. We've got a lot to get into. We haven't talked on this podcast since the night of the Wizards game, so we have quite a few things to touch on. We don't have to get to everything from every single game, but there's obviously plenty to talk about. So, Alex, how are you doing?
Doing great. 5-1, like you said. We'll get into all of it. I mean, after 6 games, I mean, obviously, other than 6-0, 5-1's pretty much as much as you could hope for. You're just hoping there wasn't the hangover start with the Celtics, coming off the championship. But so far, that hasn't been the case. So, like what you've seen for the most part.
Yeah. And so before we dive into our topics for today, I should mention, too, we are going to take some listener questions, and we can answer those at the end of the show. So if you do have any questions for us, if you're listening live, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll try to address those at the end in a little bit of a mailbag segment. But I guess, we'll just open up with, what are your overall feelings about the team as it stands today? Like 6 games in, how are you feeling?
I feel like Tatum was really going for the MVP this year, watching him. Because like you said, a lot of times with stars, when they get their first championship or they're coming off the title, that they'd kind of go through the motions. Oh yeah, so Tatum's gonna join us today, I guess. I got a new setup here in Boston, so
to be in.
Yeah, I hear Tatum. I think he thinks he's talking about him, but I mean, he's playing like a very motivated he's very motivated. If you watch the big shot he hit in the comeback against Indiana in the one game that we did lose, he looks like a man on a mission this year. So you can thank Steve Kerr for that. You can thank all, the doubters and naysayers that still are just won't let up on him despite everything. So they look like a team that looks, ready to repeat versus one that's just in a championship hangover, as we alluded to before. So like I said, you're not going to win every game, but even the game that they were down 20, and it's almost like, okay, look, it's a long season. We just played late into the season. Let's pack this one in. And they just kept fighting and fighting and fighting. And especially seeing guys like Pritchard and Keita that were in, those big minutes as well. Unfortunately, we couldn't come away with a win. But that's a game, especially coming off a title, where it's you don't feel discouraged about that. I mean, obviously, couldn't get anything going earlier on to even get in that deficit. But, even in games they lose, they fight. You can't put this team away. It's the heart of a champion, so to speak. So, and we'll get into last night and some of the things that we've had, for the most part, I'd say a lighter schedule. But that's another thing coming off a title, where it's you have these type of teams where this is their championship. This is their Super Bowl, playing the Celtics. Literally for the Pacers, they dropped the banner down when they beat the Celtics the other day. I mean, they were waiting all postseason to do that, and they couldn't. But it's everybody's, big night of the year versus us. It's just a random Tuesday or Thursday, in October, November. So the fact that we're playing with those different mindsets and we're still racking up victories and hopefully continue to do that is a great sign for this team this season.
Yeah, and they do look different, right? I mean, coming off a championship, for whatever reason, it does seem to have a different feel to it, night in and night out. I'm trying to remember how I felt last year at this time, but I don't think I felt anywhere near as confident in them as I do now. Like, I think having seen them win the entire thing, you just have this increased faith in them that even if they do drop a game here or there, it's not the end of the world. And that was true before, but and we can get into the Pacers game, especially more in a little bit too. But it is encouraging to see them not give up on games like that and still fight back and have the talent and the ability and the want to go, come back from whatever it was, 21 down with 8 minutes left and storm all the way back to force overtime. And like you said, that Tatum shot was huge. And I know everybody, wants to say Tatum, in previous years wanted to say Tatum can't shoot and all that stuff. I've got some interesting stats on that. So we'll get into that later in the pod too. But just talking about the recent games too, because like I said, we haven't talked in a while. That Wizards game, Jordan Poole looked like he was going to kill them during that first quarter. He had like 17, but they just don't have the horses to run with the Celtics for 4 quarters. And I was a little disappointed in Alex Sarr. I thought you were going to see more from him. Defensively, he's good. Athletically, he's good. Offensively, he just doesn't give you enough.
He got a highlight clip with Tatum dancing on him. And, it's like he did his best. And that's the thing is like people are making fun of him. He did the best he realistically could. A guy that size is not going to defend Tatum on the perimeter in isolation.
That's what I'm saying.
It wasn't as bad as it may have looked to the untrained eye.
No, I really didn't think he did that bad of a job. It was just better offense. And, people were clowning on him for that, but I really didn't think there was much more he could have done. So I'm with you on that.
Watch Luka in the same scenario and he looks way worse.
Yeah. Well, I posted this on my Instagram page a little while back too with, I'm thinking about like the Jaylen Brown crossover where he dropped him and just sent Luka straight into the abyss. Like, that's what happens to Luka. Sarr stayed right with him. He was on his feet. He had a hand right in his face. Like, he did everything he possibly could have done. Tatum just still hit the shot. So, I give him a little bit of a break on that. And from talking to some people that watch the Wizards more closely, like, they seem more encouraged than people might let on. Like, nationally, the perception of Sarr is going to be worse because he's not putting up that many points. They're a bad team, so he's not going to get much exposure, but he's going to be fine. The Pistons game, the Celtics got absolutely whooped in the third quarter, and it turned into a game, but they pulled that one out. Tatum finished with 37, 4 and 2. Cade Cunningham is a beast. He's a player. Outside of that, I mean, Tobias Harris stinks. Like, he's rough to watch. That guy's been robbing teams for years. I don't know how he gets away with it. But
does he have the same agent as Gordon Hayward? Because it feels very similar.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, Hayward and maybe whenever Al signed that deal with Philly and just rode the bench and got traded.
At least actually Gordon has an excuse that he turned his leg all the way around. Like, Tobias Harris just stinks, like you said. But
Harris, yeah, I mean, he's an NBA player. He's not like horrible, but
he's the Tobias Harris of Tobias Harris's. It's just like his where he looked the best was in that movie Hustle, and like the couple minutes they showed him in that. Like, it shows him to his potential when he's playing non-NBA players. But like, against NBA players, he is what he is. Like, if he's your 7th or 8th man on the bench, then like you might have a team. When you're relying when he's a starter, not just a starter, but like your 3rd best player, as he was for Philly at times, or in Detroit, he might even be their 2nd best player. Like, good luck.
Yeah. It's relative to what you expect from him, right? It's like every team that keeps bringing him in, like you expect basically a star player, and you're just not getting that out of him. So I know everybody that has dealt with that is disappointed in that. The Bucks game. So this one was good because going into the game, I was fearful because the night before the Bucks had just lost to Brooklyn. And I thought there was a really, really good chance that was the worst thing that could have happened for the Celtics going into the game on Monday, because I thought Milwaukee was going to come out hungry. They ended up getting a win, so it turned out to not matter. And I just loved that shot of Doc Rivers after Peyton Pritchard hit that shot at the end of the quarter. And he's just hunched over like he just watched his dog get run over by a car. Like, That was hysterical to me. I just loved that.
That symbolizes the Doc Rivers experience in general. Is that like that should be a meme? Just Doc Rivers, like that's his career right there. It's just like, come on.
Yeah, and
his coaching career since the 08 team, anyways.
From his perspective, though, I'm sure he's telling his team, like, do not let Peyton Pritchard get the ball. And if he does, I don't know, foul him or force him somewhere where he can't get a shot up, or just do something. You can't let him get a shot up like that.
That wasn't like that was a 3/4 courts one, too. That was like right behind the 3-point line.
Let him run all the way down to the 3-point line. Like, you got to force him out of bounds or make him give up the ball. Like, I can't believe that they let him run as far as they did. That was wild to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I see that not the only reason Doc Rivers may finish the season with the team is because how many coaches are they currently paying right now? 2, 3, 4? Like they have like a coaching payroll right now where they're still paying salaries of former coaches. So if they keep him on, it's for that reason. If they have any intent of contending other than lying to themselves and be like, we have, the team to do it and Doc Rivers is the coach, we're still figuring it out, like that team is going nowhere fast. I mean, granted, you can only take so much away from the first week of the season, but it's not just that they're losing. They just don't look good. They're getting blown out in games. They look old. They look slow. I don't know what the solution is because that team is over the cap too, like way over. Like that Drew Holiday for Dame trade ended 2 franchises timelines, the Heat and the Bucks, while also putting the Celtics into dynasty lane. So that trade, Nathan, bless him, but that he said he would do over and over again. Like that trade not saved us, but like we don't have to worry about like what we couldn't be missing from Smart because it pretty much replaced it and more and Drew while, allowing them to feel good about themselves if you're playing NBA 2K with Damian Lillard. But in reality, like it just made that team worse and the Heat just kind of took them off the map. So, thank you very much, Horst and the Bucks for that trade.
Well, and it's kind of the worst case scenario, the way that trade played out, because as you said, like with Nathan, he said, and I kind of agree with him, you do that trade 10 times out of 10. Like it just happens. It just happened that it turned out the absolute worst way it possibly could, that there's no chemistry. They had to fire the coach and they just look awful. And now, there are talks about trading Giannis, which I don't think I imagined we would hear before this season. But I think they have to think about it. Don't you?
So I have to see how much longer he has on his contract. But like you said, NBA contracts, it's not like, okay, well, he has 3-4 years left, so he's just not going to get traded. He has no control. Like he does have control. I mean, obviously you'd like to do anything and move any other piece around, but it's like, what pieces really have value other than Miami still seeing Dame as like that piece at this point? Maybe they give up more than they should just because now they're not dealing with Joe Cronin anymore and they're dealing with Milwaukee. Like maybe there's a trade in there where, Miami's like, okay, well, if we put Dame in here with this, we'll, trade Jovic and Jaime Jaquez or whatever over there, where the Bucks are like, okay, we'll take one slight step back and the Heat take a step forward. Like we're going to try to maximize the Jimmy window. That's maybe the only trade because I don't really see what Dame does for a lot of teams in this league. It really, like that he elevates you to that next level with what you'd have to give up. And so, yeah, to go to the Giannis thing, that's just like, it's really tough because then you're punting at that point. There's no trade player you're going to get back. Like I saw someone bring up like, trade Chet and a boatload of picks for him. And then someone else was like, I don't think you do Giannis for Chet straight up. And then they were just, being silly at that point. Like Oklahoma City absolutely does Giannis for Chet straight up, let alone the picks they'd give up with him. First of all, they have 1 million picks. So picks mean nothing to Oklahoma City. Like picks, they're like lottery tickets. Like they'll trade 5 picks away. But like you trade Chet for Giannis, that team is much closer to winning right now. It's just, what style do you want to play with that team? Because when you have Giannis, you have to play a different style. Like he's not someone that's like a plug and play. Like, I'm not comparing these players at all, but Drew Holiday, like is a plug and play type of player with everything. With Giannis, you change the style that you play because he's not a person that's going to hang around on the perimeter. Like you have to play his style or he's not going to be the same type of player. So I don't think he gets moved this season. I think that Giannis is the type of thing that's an off-season deal. But that's if Milwaukee, they don't make the playoffs or they're like a play-in team and they don't even make the first round or they go out in the first round quickly again. But yeah, that's crazy how quickly that fell apart. Like I know we were sweet talking Nathan with like, we think they're the second best team. And you can argue it without looking at what's happened this season, like looking at the rosters, you can make an argument for it because it's like Giannis is Giannis. Dame, he could still have, that ceiling left in his game. But like, I feel like they have a higher ceiling than a lot of teams in the East, but they have a lower floor. And like that floor is looking really solid right now. So like I said, it's only been 2 weeks into the season. Things can change rapidly, but that's an old team. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, that could be trouble fast. And I don't know what the solution is. I really don't. I'd be frustrated to be a fan right now.
Yeah. And going back to the Lillard thing, like people, you always thought with him being in Portland and really not having any help outside of CJ McCollum and LaMarcus Aldridge way back in the day, like you thought that was just kind of a losing organization and that it wasn't his fault. And I don't know. Does he not impact winning the way that people thought that he did prior to him now being with Giannis? I mean, this is the best player he's ever played with. And honestly, right now, this is about the worst a team that he's been on has ever looked. So, like, maybe
relative to expectations.
Well, yeah, sure. But I mean, I'm not going to pretend to know the Blazers records like the back of my hand. But were they ever 1-5 or 1-4, whatever it was? Like, I don't remember.
The last 2-3 years he was there, that team sucked, and they weren't going anywhere. They made one conference finals. And like the last 2-3 years, they got like progressively worse every year, at least from an eye test. And like, I don't think they made the playoffs any of those years, where it was like time where it's like, all right, everyone was waiting for Dame to ask out, wondering if he ever was, because like they just weren't going to build a team around him. But I don't think Dame. I mean, definitely don't think at this point his career can be your best player. But like, you're like, okay, well, could he be like a number 2? And the obvious answer before last season was like, yes, of course, especially if Dame's your number 1. I'm not Dame. If Giannis is your number 1, that sounds like a match made in heaven, but like, that's an older team. It's a slower team. On top of that, while he's elite on one end of the floor, he's the opposite of elite on the other end. And it's not for lack of trying. He just is physically not capable. It's like almost like Isaiah Thomas. Now he's taller than Isaiah Thomas, but it's like, even at his best, Isaiah Thomas, like as much as he impacted full offensively, like, you almost had to hide him defensively, and you're doing that with Dame over there, and you don't have a Drew Holiday right there. Like, you already have a weak backcourt defensively, and then you have Brook Lopez, who's a great rim protector, but he can't get out. He's slower, he's older. Middleton never plays. It's just like you have good pieces, but it's like it just doesn't work anymore. And I told you before, I don't know what the solution is other than just hoping they turn it around and that Doc Rivers is, I don't know, not Doc Rivers. So.
Yeah, and I think they can. I don't think they're going to be this bad the entire year. They might not be what people expected them to be, and it certainly doesn't look like they're going to be the second team in the East like I thought they would be. But I don't think they're going to finish below 500. I don't think they're that bad. I think they have too much talent for that. But let's get into the Pacers game too, because as we talked about at the start, there was a lot of credit going around for the Celtics coming back from 21 down with 8 minutes left. And like I said, I will give them that they stormed back and didn't just give up because it was, a regular season game and all that. But with that said, I was pretty frustrated with the way they were playing in the moment, like leading up to that. And Jaylen Brown, I thought looked really bad. He's one of my favorite players, but he looked rough in that game. And, not that I don't have any long-term concerns in terms of, just that one game. And I don't think it's worth it to overreact to how bad they looked in that one game. But I mean, they just couldn't get anything to fall offensively, and they could not stop Indiana. So, I think that game concerned me more than I was happy about the comeback in some ways.
So when I looked at the schedule and I'm like, okay, what games are they losing in their first 10? What's their first loss? At Indiana just felt like the first loss to me. Because I mean, like, we lost a couple times to them last year. Even the playoff games that we swept them, they're like close. We had to fight back. First of all, Indiana cannot hold the lead to save its life. Like, I don't know if that's the youth inexperience of that team or what it is, but like they can get leads. They just cannot hold on to leads. And it was frustrating to watch that game because it's like, it just felt like Indiana was begging you for a while, just like, come here, take the game. We don't want it. And the Celtics were just like, no, we're good. Like, they're just, it's like, felt like one of those nights watching it, which is, it's just not our night. We're missing bunnies at the rim. We're missing wide open shots. And I didn't think Indiana was playing that great. I think we were playing that poorly. And it's like, we could literally win 73 games this year. We're going to have duds of games. We're going to have duds that we figure out ways to win because I think we have so much more talent than anybody else in the league. But that just felt like a night where it's just like, all right, kind of pack it up. The fact that they could just turn it on, because I don't think Indiana ever stopped sucking in the second half. It was just waiting for us to actually decide we wanted to win that game. And then it just felt like the last couple minutes, everything that could go wrong for Indiana did, and everything went well for us, like kind of like the playoff games. And it was almost like you're expecting them to win. It almost felt like the Patriots of like the 2010s era. It just like you're watching it, and it's just like no matter how bad they play, it's until it's just be like physically impossible. You just expect them to come back and win, and it's nice to watch the Celtics like that because of how poor the other teams are, and just feel that like that team's going to do it, and they actually should have. And then in overtime, it just didn't happen. But it's like you said, it's encouraging that they came back. It's frustrating that that's how they played. I feel like that's going to happen a few times this year, like several times actually. Some of them games they're going to win, some of them they aren't, but. I think they know if you show up to a playoff game like that, that's what's going to be frustrating, or like a marquee game. And like you said, the Celtics are marquee for everybody. Indiana conference finals rematch, but I don't think they respect the Pacers that much. I mean, they probably should more considering all the games are close, but I think they take like the team like the Knicks or the Sixers or like the Bucks, something like that, like a team that's more seriously versus Indiana that's an up and coming team. But I feel like they walked in a lot of times and just like if it happens, it happens. And Jalen might have been one of those players that night. And he even said, he's like, I sucked that night. But Jalen's been so consistent and he shows up when you need him to that, like, it's one game. Now, if he puts together like a 2-3 week stretch about that, you get more concerned. But, he is sitting tonight, by the way, with something that's been bothering him with his hip. Yeah. So maybe that factors into it a little bit. I mean, he's been playing, so I don't know how much the injury is bothering him. But like I said, at this point of the season, things are bothering you, take the night off. Like, we're going to win tons of games this year. Like, it's not worth risking any sort of long-term injury for it.
Yeah, and with the Indiana game in particular, Mathurin was ridiculous in that game, and I don't think you're going to get that out of him, especially in
he didn't play in the playoffs either.
Series. No, and he was out during the series last year, but I still don't think, what did he have, like 30, 31, 32, something like that? I don't remember.
Over 30.
I don't think he's a 30-point-a-night guy in the playoffs. I think they find a way to shut him down. I think maybe, it might not be worth expending that much energy in terms of trying to stop him in a regular season game. Like, let's just try and do our thing, try to get the win, see if we can get it. If we can't, It's fine. It's one game. You'd be 3-1 at that point, and like, it's fine. But moving on, I know we want to get to the Hornets game from last night because, they're playing them again tonight. And I want to make sure we touch on all this before the game starts, which will be probably in about 15, 20 minutes is my guess. So the game last night, this was a blowout. But I mean, the story is the Grant Williams thing. So this is just me talking. I could not believe that he did that. So Tatum grabs the rebound, Grant is over by the sideline, and he just goes into a full sprint and just hip checks Tatum to the floor. And I was like completely astounded. And I was mostly surprised by it because I at least used to believe that Tatum and Grant were friends.
Jalen said the same thing.
Jalen echoed that after the game. He said the exact same thing. He's like, I thought those guys were close, but like, I guess not. Like, that was wild to me. I mean, did you have any thoughts on this?
I couldn't believe it either. There's like almost no excusing it. It's not like, they were both going for a rebound and like he caught an elbow from him that was bad, but it like is inadvertent. Or it's like, Tatum just had a steal at like of a 1-point game with seconds left and he's just going for it. Or it's like, oh, they have to commit a foul. It made no sense. There's like nothing about it that made any sense. And the only thing you can think of is just kind of like, I've always liked Grant, but it's like it's loser behavior. It's like, it almost kind of looks like he's salty that he wasn't on that team last year that won the title. And it's funny because Tatum's probably the reason he got the contract he did anyways, because I feel like Tatum made him look better. He was like close with Tatum. The fact they were even considering bringing him back, Tatum was a big part of. Like, maybe Deuce saw, the big picture where he was just never close with Grant. He didn't want to touch Grant. Like, it's, how they say, like, if babies or dogs don't like you, you might not be a good person. Like, Deuce
Child
just didn't like him.
Pretty good, man. It really is.
Yeah, Deuce could see right through him. He knew Grant was no good. And another person I want to reference, shout out Mr. White. Probably not watching, but if you are, I just saw him going after Grant. It's almost just like he always kind of had felt that way, and he just kind of like, okay, well now everyone else can see it for what it is, and it's when you hear Mike Gorman last year saying kind of nobody in the locker room really liked him, and then Tatum was like Cap. Well, it's like, well, maybe Tatum liked him, but everyone else kind of was like annoyed by him. And Tatum was like his one supporter, and then he did it to Tatum, and that's why Jalen ran up. And he's like, "That's what we doing now." Like, it just made no sense. It does it almost looked like Timu Draymond Green that he wants to be, and it's like to Tatum of all people. It's one thing if it's like I don't know, like someone else on the bench that like you would have had no idea he had a bad relationship. It's like, oh well, that's really strange. He didn't like I don't know Peyton Pritchard or something like that. Like to Tatum, like his most notable, at least like as like from the outside looking in, friend on the team. Yeah, I don't know. I can't explain it. And then Grant after was like trying to, well, it only looks bad when you actually watch the video. Yeah, no shit. Like, how else are we supposed to look at it? But it's like, we're supposed to know your intent. Like, there's no way to spin that. It wasn't like you wound up and punched him. So, like, we're not going to get carried away or, you like mugged him on the street. But, like, come on, bro. Like, it is what it is. You could just say, like, look, I was frustrated in the moment. We're losing the game. Like, my bad. I should have been smarter. But, like, his excuse almost made it worse.
Yeah, and like you said, he was asked about this in the post game, and I took down the whole quote just because I wanted to read it. He says, "It was a transition opportunity, and I was trying to make a play on the ball. I did reach across his body, and probably when you slow down the replay, it looks like I was just trying to make a play. JT is one of my closest friends in the league, and I wasn't trying to harm him in any way. It was just one of those plays where it was fast, full speed. He passes the ball, which probably makes it worse because when I reached for the ball after the fact, the ball's already out of his hand." And then he goes on to say, "I don't think it leads to anything if it's not escalated after the fact." So this is me interjecting. He thinks that this was a nothing play unless it got ruled a flagrant 2. That didn't make any sense to me. I didn't know what he was getting at there. So going back to Grant, he said, "You see me raise my hand and it's like I fouled him trying to take the foul in transition and I got helped up by my teammates and walked away. I don't think anyone thought it was malicious intent by any means because you don't see anybody running up to me." But then he admits JB was just frustrated just because you don't want to hurt your teammate. And I understand that, but there was nothing from my mind that was intentional. And so back to me, I said this on Twitter right after the fact. Like, I think he's the only one that feels that way because when you watch the play in real time, like not even in slow motion, it's a clear flagrant foul, a completely unnecessary play. And like everybody was fine. Nobody got hurt. So we may be spending too much time on this, but I think Grant's delusional. Like if he doesn't realize what he did here. I think he just went nuts for a minute there. And we all have those moments where you sort of react a certain way to something and maybe wish that you could take it back or handle it differently. But that was a weird one, especially because he had to go so far in order to catch him. So he had to consciously make the decision to sprint at him and just deck him. And I'm curious to see how the Celtics respond tonight and if there's anything else. But there was an update probably, 45 minutes ago from Gary Washburn, who put out a tweet. And he said,
they talked, yeah.
He said that he was told that Grant Williams and Jason Tatum talked after Friday's game. Williams was apologetic. Tatum was apparently still annoyed, but accepted. So I don't think it's going over very well with Jason.
No, all I can think of now that we're talking is like maybe, they're up big late and Tatum's just talking shit to him. It's like, yeah, well, get used to this. Like, you guys suck. Like, you're not like should have won a title with us. Like, you're never gonna come. Like, maybe he's trash talking to him, and he did like Grant just got into his feelings in the moment. That's the only thing I can think of. But like, yeah, there's a lot of juice for a back-to-back in Charlotte against a crappy team where they just kind of like all the wheels came off the wagon at the end of that game. Where like LaMelo Ball got a 6th foul on like a flagrant, and then Miles Bridges got tossed. That team, they got a lot of issues there. I mean, they got young talent, but they got problems. But yeah, it does bring juice into this game. Let's see what happens. Like, I'd love Tatum to get him on an island with him guarding him, or like, I don't know, dunk on him, or like block his shot and just kind of stare him down after. Like, I don't know. It's too bad Deuce doesn't have social media because that would have been funny to see what his reaction was. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this right now. We're about to start momentarily with this game. So let's see if there's any carryover from last night to make this matchup more entertaining. And hopefully it's another Celtics victory, but we'll see if there's any fireworks or extracurriculars that come along with it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. It should be good. A couple things I wanted to hit on before we wrap up, because I know the game's starting in a few minutes probably. I wanted to hit on some stats for Tatum. He's staying on pace right now. As we talked about in our last podcast, like he's going to be right in the thick of the MVP conversation if he stays on this pace. He's currently sitting at 30.5 points, 7.7 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 2.2 steals, which is a great number, and 0.7 blocks per game. He's also at 2.3 turnovers, which is his lowest, at least right now, since the 2019-20 season. So that's really, really encouraging. He's not playing around with the ball too much. He's being decisive. That's fantastic. The free throw percentage is a little bit concerning to me. It's way below his career average. He's at 77% right now, and it's usually up closer to like 84%. So that's a huge dip, and I wonder if the change in his jump shot is taking away from that at all. Last thing on him, the three-point shooting. It looks better, right? You would think. But you want a neat science fact. His three-point percentage right now is lower than it was last year when everybody said he couldn't shoot. And now people are saying he can shoot, and his percentage is lower. So I don't know what to make of that. But he's also taking 3.5 more threes per game and making a full additional 3 per game. So the volume is up, and I think that might have something to do with it.
I think it's the whole thing about how he was fixing his shot, the aesthetics of it, and on how on fire he was opening night when everybody was watching. I think like the level of threes he hit, like the percentage that he had, I think that put into everybody's mind. And then the stat lines he's been putting up, and that he's making another 3 per game. That's what people are thinking. Obviously, everything with Tatum, no matter what he does, they're going to find something. So it would be show field goal percentage, things like that. Like, and I haven't been paying attention to the comment section as much this season. I guess that's the luxury you have when you're a champion. You just don't care as much anymore. But I mean, they may still be doing that, but if they are, it's not as blatant. I'm not seeing it on my feed plastered everywhere the way I had in the past. I guess, well, people can lie to themselves about how meaningless last year's title was or Tatum's role and stuff like that. Like, he's a champion, and whether they want to admit it or not, he is. And he was, led the team in every statistical category that mattered in that time frame. And it seemingly aesthetically improved his shot. So that's kind of seeping into people's heads. Like, okay, well, now he's a better shooter. He's putting up these huge numbers. Looks like he's on a revenge tour. MVP campaign. So I think that's a lot to do with it as well. But yeah, I mean, like you said, he wasn't going to get MVP consideration until he won a title. Now he's won a title. So feels like it's all gravy, and it's coming in the flow of the team winning as well, which is a big thing.
Yep. Yeah.
It's not empty Luka despite the lost stats,
Sure. On the flip side, Jaylen Brown, I have some concerns. I'm a little bit worried. The numbers sort of tell the story, but also don't. He's shooting 40% from the floor, less than 27% from 3. His offense is not good right now by his standards. But with that said, he's completely changing the way that he plays. He is getting to the free throw line literally almost twice the amount that he did last year. And his free throw percentage is also up 10% over last year. He's also getting 7.2 rebounds per game. And he's always going to be a good defender. So, like, this is not to say, as I've said before, Jaylen is one of my favorite players, one of my favorite Celtics ever. Like, I love watching him. So long term, I'm not worried at all. But they're going to need him to figure out his shot. But assuming that this isn't a permanent issue, the Celtics clearly still have the best duo in the league. I don't think there's any debate about that.
No, I agree. And like I said, hopefully, like it's like baseball players. They go through slumps, things like that. And it was one game, and now you see that he's been like hurt a little bit. So it's like, okay, maybe that's it. Let him rest up. Like I really don't at this moment have any concerns about him. It's crazy that like Tatum's free throw percentage is dropping, Jaylen's is rising, and it's always was kind of like, okay, well, Jaylen can't hit free throws. Now, like, you missed another one the other night that seemed crucial, but like in general, he's been shooting a lot better from that. I want to see how him and Tatum look, next Wednesday against the Warriors, where they both seemingly have beef with Steve Kerr. So that's what I'm interested to watch. Rest up so he can be at full strength for that game. But yeah, I don't have any concerns about him or the team right now.
And the likelihood with the free throws is that they both kind of return to the mean. And, Jaylen will probably get a little bit worse. Tatum will probably get a little bit better. And water will find its level. So over the course of 82 games, we're going to see, what those guys really are. And, hopefully it leads to another 1 seed. I've also I've really liked what you've seen from Neemias Queta. He looks great. He is rebounding really well. He is bouncy around the rim. He's not Rob Williams, but he might be a lot closer to that role than you would think. And that dunk on Miles Bridges, the dunk on Miles Bridges, that was sweet, and it could not have happened to a better guy. And
if only it was Jalen dunking on him.
True. I thought he was never going to let go of the rim. That was emasculating for Bridges. Like that was fun.
Someone's got to get Grant like that tonight.
Let's hope so. And then Hauser too. He's been out of the lineup a lot. He's dealing with the back issue. I do think sometimes they actually kind of miss him because he helps space the floor so well. Somehow he was a -8 last night against Charlotte in a win. So that's a little bit worrisome, but he doesn't play enough to make it, super concerning. I probably wouldn't get too worried about that. I guess I shouldn't be stressing over, the 9th man on the roster. Pritchard looks fantastic. He's in contention for 6th man of the year. The odds on that went, from him being a long shot before the season to him being pretty much the betting favorite pretty quickly at the start of the season. So that's been really cool to watch. I think those were pretty much everything. That's pretty much all the stuff I wanted to hit on. So did you have anything else before we step away for this game tonight?
No, I'm ready to see if there's any fireworks or theatrics that happen tonight, and otherwise in what should be hopefully an easy victory if we take it serious.
Yep. Yeah. Hopefully, like you said, Celtics and Hornets tip off for the second game of this back-to-back in Charlotte in a few minutes. So I guess we'll go ahead and sign off. So thanks for tuning in as always. And thank you to all of you who've been listening live leading into this game. And we're hoping to see another W for the guys. And we'll check in next week.
Ends tonight here. It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. The Celtics are NBA champions.